It is time for the Writer's Block, our weekly look at all things sporting. I'm Jenni Carlson here in the studios of the Oklahoman, joined by Cedric Golden in the studios of the Austin American-Statesman. Hello, my friend.
What's up, Jen?
Hey, I'm just getting ready for football. I know you are too. It is that time of year, and obviously as we wait for these games to get started, it's the perfect time to talk about our predictions, our prognostications, all things that start with P. I'm out of words now, but I'm not out of words when it comes to talking about quarterbacks in the Big 12. The guys that are going to be running around on these Big 12 teams this year, not as maybe name recognized as we had a year ago when you had Kyler Murray, Will Grier, on down the list. But it begs the question, who is the best quarterback currently going in the Big 12?
I'm going to have to go with Jalen Hurts of the Oklahoma Sooners, 26-2 at Alabama, a national champion in a tough, rough and tumble conference. I'm giving Jalen Hurts the edge over Sam Ehlinger of Texas, who comes into the offseason into the regular season with a lot of hype and a lot of expectations attached after that win over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. But Jalen Hurts' record speaks for himself. He's coming to OU, who always wins the Big 12. And let's not forget, he's going to be working with the quarterback whisperer, Lincoln Riley. Nothing but good things happening in Norman this offseason. Yeah. I'm giving Jalen Hurts the edge over Sam Ehlinger.
Boy, it's interesting. This time for Hurts is going to be a much more condensed amount of time working with Lincoln Riley than Baker Mayfield had or Kyler Murray had. I know that those guys, obviously Murray just started 1 year for the Sooners, but he was in the program longer than that, so they were able to work with him a lot longer. Can Jalen Hurts, can he see some of those same benefits in a much shorter amount of time? You know, it may not be about the offense, it may be more about the trust and sort of the overall feel of things in Norman. You know, I think he's fantastic. I think there's going to be some growing pains. So it's really interesting to think about the expectations of Ehlinger, Cedric, but also the unknown of Jalen Hurts not being necessarily that downfield throwing threat that we've seen out of Kyler Murray, out of Baker Mayfield in Lincoln Riley's system. I think it will be interesting to see how quickly Hurts evolves into that role of starter. As we said here, he hasn't even been named the starter. So is it
whatever?
Yeah, is it crazy that we're giving him the nod over Ehlinger, a guy that hasn't even secured the starting spot yet at Oklahoma?
Of course we are, and I'm going to tell you why. The one thing that I like about Lincoln Riley, Jen, the quarterbacks don't have to fit his system. He fits his system to the quarterback's talent. You're going to see a lot more RPOs and rollouts, plays that are designed to get Jalen Hurts in the open field. Because our good friend Barry Trammell asked Lincoln at the Big 12 Media Days about this offensive line. You lose 4 offensive linemen to the NFL. So what's the best way to get an offensive line feeling a little bit better about itself? Get that quarterback on the move, and he can make that first guy miss, and that might loosen things up for the run game, for guys like Kennedy Brooks. So for me, I think that he's going to figure a way out to best cater to Jalen Hurts' skill set. He's not the best downfield thrower. Ehlinger is a pretty good thrower, but we both know that the Texas Longhorns they're the only team in D1 that didn't have a play over 50 yards last year. So they're more of a ground and pound type offense, station to station. And so I think that Jalen Hurts is going to be on the move a lot more earlier, while Lincoln figures out how to get this offensive line acclimated to a different skill set behind center.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, as we talk about quarterbacks in the Big 12, these names aren't nearly as well known as the ones that everybody knew from last year. But, a guy like Brock Purdy at Iowa State, a legitimate high school star now in Ames. They don't have many of those guys come through. Be interesting to see how does he now in his first full year as the starter up there, how does he do? Charlie Brewer at Baylor. West Virginia, Austin Kendall, a transfer from Oklahoma. Looks like he may be the guy in West Virginia. Some guys that aren't necessarily as known, But it'll be fascinating to see how do they evolve, how do they emerge as that next crop of quarterbacks in the Big 12. Because now, Cedric, the pedigree's out there. You know, it used to be that Big 12 and all these air raids, everybody thought, well, these are just system quarterbacks. Cedric, right now, the three of the most high-profile quarterbacks in the NFL are Big 12 guys in Patrick Mahomes, defending MVP. You've got Baker Mayfield setting the world on fire in Cleveland, and Kyler Murray, who everybody is excited to see what he can do in Arizona. Of those three, I'm curious. We talked about who we thought was the Big 12 best right now. Of those three guys in the NFL, who's the most likely to exceed expectations this year, those three Big 12 quarterbacks?
Well, for Patrick Mahomes, who threw for over 5,000 yards with 50 touchdowns, for him to exceed that, Jen, means that he's got to lead the Chiefs to a Super Bowl or bust. So I'm going to say Baker Mayfield, with the addition of Odell Beckham teaming up with Jarvis Landry. You got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in that backfield, and you got a bevy of great defensive players led by Myles Garrett, the former Aggie. They are poised to make a real run in the AFC North. Big Ben Roethlisberger is going to his first season in 6 years without Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown on the roster.
Right.
They're talking about the locker room is so much better. Oh, so much more harmony. Guess what? When you start out 2-6, and I'll ask you about that harmonious feeling then. The Browns are still the Browns, and until they beat somebody and make the playoffs, they're still going to have that stigma. But what they have is a quarterback at the helm who is not afraid, who is brash, who is confident, who believes that he can lead this team to special places. Patrick Mahomes set a huge bar for himself his first year as a starter. So I think that Baker's chances of exceeding what he did last season are greater than what we're going to see from Patrick. And when you look at Kyler Murray, the Cardinals aren't very good.
Yeah.
They're going to feed David Johnson, the running back, and they're just going to hope to keep him upright. I'm still very leery of a very small quarterback in a big man's league. I know he's fleet of foot and very, very talented, but when is the last time a guy that size did great things in the league? They're hoping to get a Russell Wilson type of output from him, but he's a long way from being Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a rude awakening, I think, for Kyler Murray, just with the pieces around him. I mean, you don't nearly have the type of skill that, say, Baker Mayfield does now in Cleveland with the offseason acquisitions. You know, I think he probably is the guy that's most likely. I know expectations in Cleveland are very high. I know they expect this team to do a lot of things that they haven't done in a long time, but I do think that it's set up, if everything goes the way that it looks to be trending, you like the Browns to be a team to watch. I mean, they've just got so many more pieces in place. But Arizona, you know, I think that there's a potential for Kyler Murray to be a good NFL quarterback, but yeah, just the pieces aren't as good there, so it's going to be more difficult. He's going to have to figure out how to adapt his game to the NFL. We saw it happen at the college level. While he hasn't grown any, but he definitely figured out a way to be elusive, to avoid injury. He's going to have to do that and then some for Cliff Kingsbury. I still can't believe I'm saying that, in Arizona. It's going to be interesting to see, though, how he is able to handle that in his first year, taking over the reins. I mean, he's going to do something it looks like that not even Baker Mayfield did, Cedric, and that he's the guy. I mean, when Baker got to Cleveland, they basically said, no, we're not going to start him right away.
We're going to wait.
Injury forced their hand. They did. But Kyler looks like he's going to get the start from the get-go. So that's a whole other ball of wax that Kyler Murray is going to have to adjust to and embrace to see how he handles that.